Hello, and welcome back to The Pilot Principle. This is the podcast where I typically sit here from on high and judge the first episode of a new series. Why, you wonder? Well, I do it to determine whether or not it's done its job in convincing us, the audience, to take a chance on the series, or at least the second episode. I have got oodles and oodles of episodes for you to go back and listen to if that sounds up your Diagon alley, because today I'm doing something different. Today, I'm looking back and rounding up the pilot episodes I've watched so far. Now, I wouldn't call this an end of year roundup per se. It's more of a quarterly check-in / there wasn't much on to watch and review last week, so I'm working with what I have up. Now, I do have a vague order of events for the episode, which includes the series I made it to the end of after watching the pilot episode, the ones I gave up on after saying I'd continue past the pilot episode, a thought on the Doctor Who pilots that I've watched, and possibly looking at one of those best series of 2023 lists. Look, don't look at me like that, okay? I can do a personal roundup while simultaneously acknowledging that the year is in fact coming to an end. It's called multitasking. Now, as there are various bits to get into and I have no idea how long this episode will end up being, let's just get into it. First off, let's summarize, break it down, crunch some numbers, if you will. So I watched a total of 20 pilot episodes for the Pilot Principle, and of that, 5 I said I'd be skipping. I decided to continue with 9, which can be broken down even further. So of those 9, I sat on the fence for 2 pilots, which basically means that I recommended it, but I was either mad about recommending it, or I recommended it because of what the show represented at the point in time they came out. There were 2 pilot episodes I stopped after the second episode and now have zero intention of going back to, despite swiping right on the pilot. And at present, of those 9, I'm still making my way through 3. 5 skips plus 9 continues equals 14 pilots if my A-level math skills are still up to scratch. So the remaining 6 pilots I looked at were part of the Doctor Who pilot series I did, which, do they count? I don't know, we'll talk about it later. Now, if your head isn't hurting from all that numbering, let's start with recalling what I didn't recommend so we can, quickly erase these shows from our memory and move forward. So, the shows I pulled the plug on after episode 1. Firstly, there was Wilderness, which was an Amazon Prime series, and over the pilot we watched Will and Liv try to save their marriage after Liv finds out that her husband Will cheated. They go on a cross-country road trip in the States because a UK one would be very short, and she decides she's going to murder him. And the primary reason that I decided not to continue past the pilot episode is because the characters felt underdeveloped and the idea felt overdone. Next was BBC One's Boiling Point, which is set in the kitchen of a new up-and-coming London restaurant during a busy dinner service where the personal lives of the characters interfere with the running of the kitchen and an important business dinner taking place. For me, again, this one comes down to character mostly. The characters, I just didn't like any of them. They were all so unlikable. And I found the program quite stressful, but not like in a fun way, like The Bear. And clearly, one thing I realized about myself this year is that I don't like stressful programs. So Boiling Point was a no for me. Next, we move over to ITV1 for Three Little Birds, which is an immigration story historically linking to the Windrush era, when men and women were asked to come to the UK to help out with a skills shortage after the war. This one focused on 3 women and it was a little too tame for me. I was vaguely intrigued to see where the characters would end up, but it didn't grip me enough to care about actually finding out. And personally for me, this one was more suited to Saturday at 7 p.m. Flipping back to the streaming services, Disney Plus stars Culprits was next on my list, and this one was a heist thriller told over the present where we meet our main character, Joe, who has a massive bag of cash he's hiding in a tree and a terrible American accent. A flashback reveals that Joe was part of a team asked to commit a heist, but oh yeah, said members are now being killed off in the present. Joe was a bit of a 2D main character for me, and though the idea of a heist was really tantalizing, except for a few intense scenes, it was an utterly forgettable pilot episode. And finally, coming back to BBC One, we have Boat Trip, and this one is about 2 strangers who find a boatload of drugs and decide to keep it to sell. I thought this series was just an absolute mess. The genre was all over the place, the tone was all over the place, and for me, the writers just couldn't quite work out what it is they were trying to say. Also, what really got me is that Boat Trip aired at 9 p.m. on BBC One, and that slot is supposed to be reserved for gold, and, well, Boat Trip was just pure copper. Okay, now that that is done, we can erase those 5 shows from our minds as we move forward to break down the 9 remaining non-Who pilots. Now let's start with the 2 pilots that I said I initially intended to continue after the pilot episode, but gave up after episode 2. The first of which is, and please don't come for me, okay? The first of which is The Mandalorian. And I mean, I don't really even remember what happened in episode 2, to be honest, but I remember feeling like after the build up of episode 1 that had some pretty decent shots and humor and sequences, episode 2 was just a bit of a letdown. Also, I'm not gonna lie, there's so much hype surrounding it. Everyone says it's great, so part of me wants to keep going, but for now, it's just a no for me, and I'm trying to learn to quit while I'm ahead. And for me, The Mandalorian is just, yeah, sorry, Mandy fans. It's a skippity skip for me. Now, the second show came as a surprise to me because it featured one of my favourite narrative devices, time manipulation. Okay, maybe not directly, but it's a story told across multiple timelines, and that is Netflix's Bodies. I found the second episode to be slow, and though tiny pieces of the puzzle began to be revealed, it wasn't enough to make me click next. There was little character development by episode 2, which wasn't that surprising as I found there to be an unbalanced progressive narrative across the 4 timelines. Now, admittedly, Bodies is still sitting there on my continue watching list on Netflix, but I don't know, I can't bring myself to remove it, and I can't bring myself to press play on episode 3 either. So if anybody listening has watched Bodies and really enjoyed it, or watched Bodies and didn't enjoy it, let me know so I can decide whether to press play on episode 3 or just completely remove it from my TBW. Okay, that is 2 out of 9 mentioned, so let's keep ploughing forward with the 2 pilots that I said I was sitting on the fence for. The first of which is a recent release on Netflix, and that is Obliterated, which is an in-your-face action comedy set over 24 hours as things go from bad to worse for a special ops team in Las Vegas who party hard thinking their mission is over, only to find out it's just begun and they're all wasted. So, oopsie. Now, the reason I was on the fence about Obliterated is because the first episode was just okay, if a little drawn out in the middle. The concept for future episodes and all the madness that would ensue could also border on silly, so I just wasn't sure if it would be going in a strong direction. But because of the time of the year it is and the type of program it was, which is just a silly action comedy, I thought it'd be a good one to have in my back pocket as something to watch if you didn't want to think too much. And I tell you right now that that is exactly what I needed. I've already watched all of Obliterated and it was exactly what I needed. It was easy to watch after a long day, it didn't require too much of my attention, and the characters are who they are, and there's no need for much development or too much expectation because everything essentially happens within 24 hours. So yeah, I stand by what I said. I wouldn't necessarily go and call it the best program out there. It wouldn't be making any top 10 lists, I don't think. But if you just need something quick and easy and random to watch, then yeah, Obliterated was exactly that. The second show I fenced was, which will come as no surprise to anybody who has been listening, say it with me, The Continental from the world of John Wick, the quote-unquote series as they've chosen to call it. Now, this one is about 2 brothers who try to take down a man at the top of a criminal organization. Well, that's not exactly what it's about, but it's the easiest way to put it without having to go into too much detail and the backstory of, or front story of the whole John Wick franchise. So let's just leave it at that. Anyway, I was so mad at this show because it was 3 episodes, each being an hour and 20 minutes. Movies. It was 3 movies, okay? And I just thought that it just breaks all kinds of TV rules. But with that being said, do I enjoy the world of John Wick? Yes. And did I want to know how the manager of the Continental came to be? Also, yes. And so that's why it's on the fence for me. And I did initially state in my review that I would take my time with watching this quote unquote series. I've said quote unquote too many times, I understand. And I have so far watched 2 out of 3. So I'm going to try and watch the final one before the end of the year, just so I can leave it in 2023. But yeah, would I recommend? It's hard to say because considering how long ago the series came out and the fact that I've only watched 2 out of 3 is a little telling, but I'm not petty, so I will be finishing it. Okay, there are 5 left to chat about, I think. 9, 2. Yeah, okay, there are 5 left to chat about. two of which I'm still making my way through as I speak, mostly because they are being released weekly, and they are some of the latest series to be released, and that is A Murder at the End of the World, which is playing on Disney Plus, and The Couple Next Door, which is on Channel 4. Now, I've watched 2 episodes of each program, and the plot doth thicken. Even though I haven't watched more yet, they have both been on my mind, and I'm itching to see how their plots will unfold and how the characters will develop. But I also won't lie to you, I'm also trying to check off a few other unfinished series, so I'm letting the episodes pile up for A Murder at the End of the World and The Couple Next Door, and then I'll do a cheeky little binge watch for each. All right. It's time for a little Doctor Who interlude. Now, for those of you who are not aware, I decided to watch the pilot episode for each Doctor from the 2005 revival of the beloved British sci-fi series. And just to explain a little bit about the concept of Doctor Who, the Doctor is an alien who travels through time and space in a blue police box, often with a companion. When the Doctor is killed, they become a new Doctor. They regenerate and they have all the same memories, but they have a different face and a different personality, which is why it was possible for me to do 6 pilot episodes about one program. Now, having watched all of them back to back, I found that there was just a really nice sort of similarity to their pilot episodes. They often feature the chaotic nature of regeneration, telling a new companion to run, reminding everyone that they're still hot shit, wearing the former ill-fitting clothes of their former selves before they settle on their own style. And even though it's the same, it's always so different and so much fun. And yeah, I think each new showrunner brings something different to the table, and it's just, Doctor Who is timeless. Like, I don't care what anybody says, at whatever age you are, when you get into it or out of it, it felt like I was recapturing an element of my youth. And part of the reason I did the whole pilots thing was as a build up to the 60th anniversary 3-episode special. And those have all now been released. And I want to say that after watching those, I felt like it was a lovely way to close the chapter on the 2005 to 2023 run of Doctor Who by bringing back some old favourites and throwing it in a happily ever after, which arguably was a little bit contrived and just for the audience, but I wasn't mad. I had questions, but I was never mad. And I still technically have one more Doctor Who pilot episode to analyse, which will happen once it airs on the 25th of December. And then I'll rank the Doctor Who pilots. So if you're not already doing so, make sure to follow the pilot principle so you don't miss when that episode airs. Okay, that should hopefully leave 3 pilot episodes that I haven't spoken about yet, and 3 of which that I've actually watched the entirety of. Hopefully no one out there is going to do me dirty by keeping track of these numbers and coming for me later. But yeah, 3. I think there's 3 left. Okay, so for funsies, let's rank them. Now, in 3rd place, we have, drumroll, that wasn't a drum, but we have All the Light We Cannot See, which is an adaptation of the Pulitzer Prize winning novel by Anthony Doerr, or is it Doerr? Somebody let me know, which is about a blind girl living in a Nazi-occupied town in France. Overall, I think 4 episodes was the perfect amount for this series, and because it all took place over 2 nights, I believe, maybe 3, it all felt really self-contained, but in a good way. The balance with the flashbacks also took away some of the pressure from the present day scenes, but in all honesty, I don't think it really added much more to the present day plot, but it was still nice. Now, in terms of how the pilot episode matched up with the series, I think it was on par. I mean, the tone set in the pilot was on point and continued throughout, and my thoughts on the fantastical element of a cursed jewel granting immortal life didn't change. I was surprised that it all occurred over so few nights, but I wasn't mad at it. But what ranks it in last place for me is that the conclusion wasn't neat. It gave into the idea of style and whimsy over the practicality of plot, and I was left wondering, okay, so what now for Marie? Yeah, I mean, it was good. I think definitely worth watching for 4 episodes, and I think it'd be nice around this time of the year. It's something that I think you can watch with the family or by yourself. It was sweet, it was emotional, it was a good time all around. Now in 2nd place is, drumroll, One Piece, which is the live-action adaptation of the immensely popular anime and manga series about a boy named Monkey D. Luffy and his quest to become King of the Pirates. Now, overall, One Piece was a riotous, overly saturated and bonkers ride, and I thoroughly enjoyed the experience for what it was. Now, I think it did help that I understood that there are over 1,000 anime episodes already in existence, which meant that this live action series was just the first step in a very, very, very long journey. And yeah, series 1 was merely scratching the surface. In terms of how the pilot matched up with the series, I think the pilot did a really solid job of introducing the three main characters, Luffy, Zoro, and Nami, and the hint that these three strangers had much more to them beneath the surface, which we thankfully got to see and watch as they developed as characters throughout the series. I would say that the only one who didn't really develop was Luffy. He came to us fully formed, but through flashbacks, we got an understanding of why he is who he is, so that was okay. I will say that by the end of the series, it ended up being about more than just big bad boss level fights. There was a surprising bit of heart and warmth to the series that made you that much more emotionally invested in the characters. And personally, I'm hoping that there's a series 2 and I can see how everyone and everything develops and meet more characters from the anime series. And yeah, I want to be King of the Pirates too. I want to join their ship and go on their crazy adventures. I want Luffy to be my friend and just give me positive pep talks. I want Zoro to teach me how to fight. I want to just plot schemes and travel the world of Nami. I want Sanji to cook for me, but you can keep Usopp well away from me. But yeah, it was just a good fun ride and I can't wait to see what they do next. Right, here we are then in the first place of the pilots I've watched from September to December 2023 is the Amazon Prime spin-off series Gen V. So, from the world of the boys, Gen V is about a bunch of superhero students in attendance at Godolphin University. And when the golden boy and poster child for the future of superheroes goes rogue, his friends begin to investigate what caused him to snap and what could really be going on at the school. And at the center of it all is the protagonist, Marie, who is new to the whole world of superheroes. I'm sorry, but why do I feel like this show is so underhyped? Why is it so slept on? It was so good. It was gory, it was actiony, it was intense, not to mention all the twists and turns in the plot, the pastiche on social media, and the power of the news in rewriting the narrative. And let's just say that I shall be adding The Boys to my watch list for 2024 and very much hoping that there will be a second series of Gen V. Now, in terms of how the pilot matched up with the rest of the series, in the pilot we're introduced to a lot of characters and possible plot threads, and I think the series did a good job of teasing them out, both with the big stuff and the little stuff. And by little stuff, I mean relationship dynamics. And considering I'm not normally a fan of shows where anyone under 25 is the lead, I was surprised by how invested I got, how much I enjoyed the program, and the fact that it's my number one pilot out of the 20 that I've watched over the last 4 months. And there you have it, 3 very different shows making the top 3 for this quarter, all of which I'd recommend for entirely different reasons. Now, let me know if you've watched any of these and what you thought, and especially if you've watched Gen V, okay? I need to know I'm not the only one who thought this show was absolutely dope. Right, so far this episode isn't clocking in too long, so screw it, let's look at the year gone by. So for ease, I'm pulling data from a list by Empire Magazine titled The Best TV Shows of 2023, where they've ranked their top 20. Here are the first series mentioned on said list. So at number 20 is Gen V, which I'm glad to see has gotten some recognition. Number 19 is Beef, and I actually watched the first episode of this really recently, and I'm not gonna lie, it stressed me out. It stressed me out so much, but I wanted to give it a try because I know it's doing really well and it's got so many nominations. But as of yet, it's unclear whether or not I'm going to be taking the plunge and watching episode 2. So, At number 17, surprisingly, was Doctor Who, which is lovely because celebrations for the 60th anniversary has really been drummed up. And I know the BBC did a deal with Disney Plus so that it can be shown internationally for any of the international Whovians out there. And yeah, it was a lovely 3-episode thing. So yeah, good for you, Doctor Who. At number 16 is Colin from Accounts, which I have not seen. At number 15 is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, which is on my list to watch this month, so I'll get to it. At number 14 is Fall of the House of Usher, which I have no intention of watching because I don't do creepy, horror-y, thriller-y type programs. At number 13 is Fleischman is in Trouble, which I've heard of but haven't watched. At number 12 is Silo, which I believe is an Apple Plus TV series, which explains why I haven't watched it or heard much about it. And number 11 is Interview with a Vampire, and I really want to read the book first, so that's why I haven't watched the series, but when will I get to the book? And number 10 is Blue Eye Samurai, which is a recent addition to Netflix, which is also on my list for this month. At number 7 is The Curse, and I don't know much about this one. I think it's come out relatively recently, and I know it stars Emma Stone, and that's all I know. And number 6 is Poker Face. And it's funny because I have the pilot episode recorded, but I just never pressed play on it. Now, I can't really remember what it's about, but I know it was from the makers of, oh, what's the name of the one with the knife and the people and Daniel Craig? Knives Out. I know it was from the makers of Knives Out, so that's what was tantalizing to me, as well as the main character, Natasha Lyonne, who also starred in the Netflix series Russian Doll. But I'm not quite sure if I'm actually going to press play on this one. Because it's at number 6 on this list, I'm now tempted to just watch the first episode and see if I like it, but there's just so bloody much, isn't there? So if you've seen Poker Face and you think it's worth the watch, let me know. And the first series on Empire Magazine's The Best TV Shows of 2023 list is The Last of Us. And listen, please leave me in peace, okay? Because I haven't actually watched The Last of Us, but I also have the pilot episode recorded. I meant to get to it, but then it got to summer, and I'm very much like watching programs at very specific times of the year, and it's not really a summer program. It's more of like a cozy autumn winter program, and it's on my list, okay? I plan to start it over Christmas, so I will soon be finding out what all the hype is about. Now, I was planning to use The Guardian's annual Best TV Show list for this segment because it features a few more British programmes and their list is a top 50 list. However, at the time of recording this episode, they are yet to announce their top 3 spots, and in all honesty, I want this episode out as soon as possible so I can do nothing during the festive break. However, what I can tell you from that 50 to number 4 slot includes Beef, Colin from Accounts, Fall of the House of Usher, Fleishman is in Trouble, Silo, The Curse, Poker Face, and The Last of Us. So that's good to know that there's some crossover between a couple of these lists. However, as I said, part of the reason I want to look at the Guardian list is because it includes a few more British programmes than some of the more international lists do. And their list does in fact include Boat Story in the number 45 spot and Boiling Point at their number 24 slot. Looking at this list really just goes to show how much TV stuff there is to watch, and also how important a pilot episode is in helping to whittle things down and determine whether to give a new series a chance. This list has also humbled and shamed me because there are way more things that I haven't watched than I expected. But that's okay, a new year is round the corner and I vow to be better. That is almost it from me here at the Pilot Principle for 2023. During my coveted time off that I have literally been counting down to for weeks, I have a long list of film and TV to catch up on. But here are some of the TV shows I'm looking to get started on. So The Lazarus Project Series 2, as well as The Gilded Age Series 2 and Vigil Series 2, which just dropped on BBC One. Not to mention finishing A Murder at the End of the World and The Couple Next Door, starting on the new Scott Pilgrim animated series. But you can follow me over on @PilotPrinciple on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter to keep up to date with me, frantically trying to have a clean watch slate by 2024. Remember, if you like the sound of any of the shows I've mentioned in today's episode, then I have TV pilot reviews ready for you to listen to on your audio streamer of choice. Now, if all goes to plan and I can get myself off of the couch, I'll be back to discuss my final Doctor Who pilot special between Christmas and New Year's. So until then, I hope you enjoy the festive period and I'll see you on the other side.